This is Borth, on the coast of North Wales. It's also just after the school summer holidays, and soon the beach will be deserted, and the golden glow of autumn will give way into the darkness of winter before the season itself blinks away into memory. Some also believe that this small place here, Borth, is what inspired the singer Morrissey to write his famous song "Every Day is Like Sunday," that mournful dirge about the strange quality of these seaside towns out of season when all the tourists have gone home. What is it that's so strange about a coastal area in winter, in autumn, when the beach is deserted, when the sun hangs low in the sky, and the call of the gull is all you can hear, where once there was the laughter of families and children? I'm going to explore Borth today to look at the history of out of season in the seaside town, before heading further up the coast to Blackpool to see how things are done very differently indeed on the brightly lit, Fylde coast of Lancashire. Let's examine both places today and see what happens when the seasons change in the seaside town. Just like most seaside towns, it was the arrival of the railways of which turned them all, sometimes seemingly overnight, from sleepy fishing ports into something resembling the new, growing phenomena of seaside holiday resorts. A Victorian invention, seeing first the upper classes visit the coast, sometimes for the first time in their lives, on claims of health and vitality to be found in the ocean, and shortly after them everybody else, in search of frivolity and escape from the industrial world inland. We'll see it all on a much grander scale in Blackpool, of course, but nowhere was immune to this effect. And even here in a small place like Borth, the town was developed as a seaside resort in the 19th century. A grand hotel was built in 1872 by Thomas Savin, of whom also built the railway station, and with it came a bowling green and a croquet lawn, all the pleasures of home away from home. There was also the Friendship Inn, formed in 1840 and now been in the same family since the 1920s, giving places to stay, drink, and make lasting memories. Aberystwyth, further down the coast, developed far more than Borth as a resort. But here was something different. Here was a place where you could lose yourself in the simple things of life, those things of sun and sea and ocean, the important, subtle joys, of which we often end up cherishing far more than a millionfold more noisy and engineered pleasures. There must be something to it, for so many of us feel drawn to these places, and that's why they developed in the first place. The Friendship Inn once ran the first discotheque to be found anywhere in West Wales, the Captain's Cabin. The coast was also, by the dawning of the mid-20th century, lined with caravan and holiday parks, of which for so many formed the entire basis of their childhood holiday memories. Cold nights and mornings, communal toilet blocks, bottles of colour gas, and one small hob ring to cook for the whole family. Was it grim and miserable? Never. It was the thing dreams were made of, and still is for those who remember it, with even famous actor Anthony Hopkins lamenting of his love for childhood holidays spent in Wales, dreaming of them weekly. By the 1960s,
These parks were big business, having evolved significantly from their early days in the 1920s, with basic shells like the carabung having evolved into stylish and inviting miniature homes, and, to make the holiday even more appealing, shops, gifts and amenities were available to purchase on-site, creating that all-inclusive feeling no matter the weather outside. With overseas travel still a distant dream, well out of the possibility for most people, a caravan holiday in somewhere like Borth was the family holiday of choice for thousands. When winter came around though, all those places closed up. In many resorts it was not unusual for them to be abandoned as well. The guest houses and holiday parks were closed, and the landladies had packed their bags and headed far away from the coming rain and wind of winter on sea. And there'd be nobody on the beach anymore. Nobody wanting to stay, and so no need to open anyway. This was always a fact of life for such places, of course. People love sitting on the beach in summer, but when winter beckons, they disappear inland and don't even think about the coastal holiday until the next summer begins to call them back. The static caravan becomes suddenly less inviting in the bleak midwinter, especially when we remember that most of these caravans were not heated and had precious little in the way of insulation. It was a hot water bottle and woolly socks, or nothing at all. And so they all closed up shop, played the waiting game all winter long, until families and couples decided it was warm and dry enough for them to return. And that is, if they decided to return at all.
Sun. You can depend on BEA. Book a BEA Silverwing holiday 68 stars. Fly from Dublin by BEA Airlines, with a friendly BEA stewardess to look after you. Your hotel, the one you choose, is ready to welcome you. Enjoy 14 days in Mallorca from only £54.16, including air travel from Dublin, meals and hotel.
As around the same time as your 1960s childhood was spent in that cold caravan on Borth seafront, the affordable overseas holiday had begun to explode in popularity. And you could travel somewhere with a guarantee of sun, no matter the time of year, a promise of new horizons and golden beaches just a few hours away, of new cultures and foods and experience, luxury hotels awaiting you in some faraway place with a strange sounding name. That old Grand Hotel, built to herald the Victorian heyday of seaside holidays, it's long gone, fallen out of fashion, out of season, no longer wanted. After all, with such magnificent options on sale in the travel brochures, why would you even bother going to Borth in the first place? Personally, I think we are the lucky ones of whom still today would choose that old caravan. The lucky ones, of who are content with those uncomplicated pleasures, the beauties and mysteries of the sea breeze and the gull's cry, who can feel the gentle call of these places, like Masefield so wonderfully described in his poem Sea Fever. I must go down to the seas again, for the call of the running tide is a wild call, and a clear call that cannot be denied. And all I ask is a windy day with the white clouds flying, and the flung spray and the blown spume, and the seagulls crying. Maybe then, that's some of the reason, at least, why these places are so sad out of season. Like they are somehow wondering where the laughter and merriment has gone, and when it shall return. But there is more to it as well, I think. Off-season, we can peer behind the curtain that was formed from those sunny days and holiday memories, the curtain of which usually covers up the cracks in the old towns. It's a liminal space too, visiting out of season. A time in between the summer memories that have just been made and the dark days of winter still to come before the cycle can begin again. Strange graffiti is daubed onto the sea wall, speaking at once of things profound and mundane, and names etched into the concrete are as wisps of memory, footprints of which have passed through and vanished again. The guest houses are closed, their shuttered windows gazing out to sea with aimless eyes. Even this chip shop had no sign of life in it. No whisper of movement to be found anywhere, save in the ceaseless song of the tide. The deserted beach almost like a mockery of the summer season that just was only a short time ago. Times all gone now and banished from the mind, apart from in dreams and fragments of memory. With that curtain pulled back, there was something different to be seen. Things we were too blind to see when immersed only in the holiday spirit. It was something sad, and even a little bit unnerving in its quietness. But with nobody here, was there any real need to open the shops and hotels? Any financial sense in doing so in the first place? Before leaving Borth for that very different world of Blackpool, I pondered again on Every Day is Like Sunday, the Morrissey song allegedly inspired by this place, and for many people, a song of which can deliberately induce the sensation of the seaside town out of season.
And of course that song just really speaks to us about the melancholy of the seaside resort out of season, when all those tourists have gone home. And in the video for it there's Lucette Henderson, and she seems to almost be the main character of this story. She seems to actually live in a town like this, and she sees Morrissey sort of dotted around the town and things, almost like a ghost of the summer perhaps, or a twinkling in her eye of desire, a shadow even of regret of what might have been. And in Every Day is Like Sunday, we hear things like win yourself a cheap tray and share some greased tea with me and things like that. Some of these lyrics, they're quite strange. There's also, of course, that suggestion of going back to the bench where your clothes were stolen. It's saying that there's a shady side, there's something a little bit rough behind the scenes, behind the edges to the seaside town. And to me, that win yourself a cheap tray, it's of course about the seaside arcades and bingos and things like that. I don't think there's anything like that in Borth right now, but there may have been, in fact there certainly has been in the past. And some of these people staying perhaps in the caravan sites that you can see around me right now, they might want to take home a trinket with them, a little trinket to say we were here in Borth. Even if we had a miserable time, even if we just walked along the beach, even if it was raining for the whole trip, we want to take back a little souvenir. It's like crested wear and seaside giftware, which was a big thing in the heyday of the seaside resort holiday. These small, inexpensive little trinkets that said Borth or Blackpool, wherever you'd been, and you would actually treasure that. And even in the winter seasons, when the nights are drawing in and there's a blizzard hammering at your window panes and you're snuggled there in front of the fire, and there, glinting in the light on top of your fireplace, is that little piece of crested ware. We were here in Borth, we were here in Blackpool, we had a wonderful time. And it's that memory. And really, I think that's what some of this is actually all about.
After arriving in Blackpool, and taking the obligatory selfie with the famous tower in the background, it was time to see a different side to the off-season days, and how, when a town grew to the size that Blackpool did, its architects actually considered the winter season and how to keep the tourists coming back for more. First though, it was time for a few rides at the pleasure beach, followed by a treat at the spectacular hot ice dancing show, of which was just finishing its run for the season in mid-September, and then a little bit of gift shopping.
It's this marvellous creature, a seagull stealing it. Is that a donut? There's a donut and a chip.
It's a donut
or a chip or something like that. Yeah.
Or a chicken nugget.
A donut stealing a chicken McNugget from the promenade here in Blackpool. And there you go. Don't forget to hit the bell for notifications for new videos, and we'll join you soon for the next one.
Blackpool, of course, unlike Borth, is about as big and bold as you can get with a British seaside town. And everything we saw earlier has been done on a scale unheard of back in the Welsh hinterland with those static caravan parks. Here, the rows of hotels go on forever. The promenade entices and attracts with every temptation you can think of. And even the beach, without which the town could never truly be, stretches on for an incredible 7 miles, with 3 piers extending into it. There is also something very special about Blackpool Promenade, something that was purposely designed to extend the tourist season and put a pause on the coming darkness and strangeness of the off-season. What if, someone wondered, we could bathe the promenade in artificial sunshine? That way the tourists, our lifeblood, would not simply go home as soon as the night started to draw in. First launched in 1879, Blackpool Illuminations really was something quite incredible. It predated Edison's electric light bulb by 12 months for a start, and perhaps more amazingly, these 8 carbon arc lamps were quite possibly the first known electric street lighting anywhere in the entire world. And were they a success? They certainly were, with the first expanded version of the Illuminations in 1912 marking a visit to Blackpool by Princess Louise of the British royal family. And here over 10,000 light bulbs were used to create so-called festoons of garland lamps. In fact, it was such a success that business owners wanted it to happen again and again, becoming something of a perfect way to round off both the season and make it last a little bit longer to begin with. What is even more incredible is to think that, at the time, many visitors to Blackpool would light their own homes by candle or gas lamp. They might have never seen electric lights, and they will certainly have never seen anything like the colours and excitement of the shapes, sights, and dazzling effects of the Illuminations. Truly, a memory to be made. In fact, by the 1930s, the Illuminations had become such a spectacle that the big switch on, or the actual lighting up of the show in the first place, garnered the interest of various celebrities from across the world. They would pull a switch, and then, as if by magic, the pause button would be placed on the ending of the season as the lights came on all over the town. In 1934, they were switched on by Lord Derby, a British politician and racehorse owner, and by 1959, the event was so popular that even the fabulous Jane Mansfield wanted to be involved.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have now very great pleasure in asking Miss Jane Mansfield to switch on the autumn Illuminations of 1959.
The effect of Blackpool Illuminations is simple, yet powerful. Just as you think the season is finished, Blackpool says, wait, there's more to come, new things to see, and even as winter encroaches upon us, you can still come and have your holiday here. And when people visit, there is of course the need for hotels to house them, for food and drink to be bought and games to be played, for trinkets and souvenirs and drinks all round for a good time in Blackpool. In other words, the Illuminations were good for business. Recent figures showed an 18% increase in footfall to Blackpool during the winter months, no doubt helped by the continuing appeal of the Illuminations, of which now run well into January every year. You can even examine the history of them today in Blackpool's new Showtown Museum, where models and displays show the long and fascinating history of these beloved lights. You can grab another selfie with a puppet or a dummy and immerse yourself into the true story of this most incredible seaside attraction. But could this artificial sun really be enough? Could it really stop the clock on the looming winter, of which grows ever closer with every passing autumn week, the sun getting lower, the leaves growing more orange before falling off, the skeletal branches of trees heralding the coldness to come? One day, sooner or later, even the Illuminations may not stop the tourists from going home. Despite the immense size of Blackpool, especially when compared to our comparison in Borth, and despite the success of things like the Illuminations in halting the coming of the off-season gloom, that same sad spirit can be seen and felt when the streets are empty. Just like with other resorts, it's not uncommon for shops or attractions to raise their shutters when the season wanes, like they are hibernating through the long days of winter, not even thinking about opening again until at least Easter. Behind the Golden Mile and the laughter of the illuminated town stand moribund streets of empty hotels, broken dreams. The wind seems to whistle through them in a mockery of our temporary joys, our plastic palaces of pleasure, of which, despite all the increased footfall in the world, still somehow need to shut in the cold, off-season days. A brief shadow is seen. The shrieking gull descends from the grey skies to rip open the backstreet bin bags of 1,000 discarded, thrown away things. The doom of winter has come to the sea town. It's a bit like that longing for Armageddon that we hear about in Every Day is Like Sunday, where the narrator of the song cries out for the end of the world in some lethargic resigning of themselves to this gloom, for everything to be washed away and forgotten. Some say this was inspired by John Betjeman's poem, Slough. Come friendly bombs and fall on Slough. It isn't fit for humans now. There isn't grass to graze a cow. Swarm over, death. Come bombs and blow to smithereens those air-conditioned bright canteens, tinned fruit, tinned meat, tinned milk, tinned beans, tinned mines. tinned breath. And despite this, there is still undoubtedly something grand, magical even, about visiting Blackpool despite the season, with or without the Illuminations. And I'm not the only one who thinks so, as even with the permanent scars caused by the package holiday exodus and the changing demands of the holidaymaker, millions still come, even in the coldest of winter days. They even sit out on the beach, with gale-force winds blowing in their face. Fish and chips cast to the wind as soon as they are opened. Food now for the seagulls. Some might wonder why. Even think them all mad for going to the seaside in such weather, let alone actually enjoying it. I think the reason for this type of thing can be found echoed yet again in that mournful, Borth-inspired Morrissey song, where in the second verse the narrator hides on the promenade and etches on a postcard, "How I dearly wish I was not here." This, of course, is a play on "Wish You Were Here," a popular motif featured on those old seaside postcards, of which often showed an idyllic vision of the coastal holiday, including a hazy golden glow, which made them appear something akin to a dream or an old memory. And really, this lyric is a double meaning. We might have even really done this. "I dearly wish I was not here," you said to yourself, "in this seaside town they forgot to close down. Come Armageddon, come." But in reality, I think we end up looking back on these places with fondness, no matter the decline, or the rain, or the strangeness in the winter season. We don't remember the coldness of the rain, or the earache caused by the wind, when we look back at our memories. All those things have gone, like they were never there. We actually love coming to Blackpool and sitting on the beach. We really do. We love walking the Golden Mile with all its myriad lights and distractions. And that's what we remember. Forget the weather forecast. This kind of thing is why, even after a truly miserable time, we still end up wanting to go back. Do it all again. In Betjeman's poem Slough, it finishes by the earth exhaling, as if, after the metaphorical bombs have fallen, the earth is somewhat healed, ready for the plough, as Betjeman puts it. And perhaps there is the real lesson of these off-season doldrums in the seaside resort, the real key to preventing decline in a more permanent and real way than any number of artificial suns and holiday fashions. It might feel strange, spooky, unwelcoming even in the off-season, but we know that one day the sun will rise there again and new memories will be made. And so instead of endless development, we need only to look at what it originally was that made those seaside pioneers fall in love with our coastal towns in the first place. The towns behind the sea can crumble away, and we know instinctively how easily that can happen. Just like the Illuminations reflect the fashions of the times, and change again when new trends and fads come along. It's quite interesting that, despite over 100 years of innovation, most new things still come and go in a remarkably short period of time. Yesterday it might have been vaudeville theatres or bathing machines, and today's fashions lean to a kind of digital utopia, a world of apps and download codes, of which, when the day comes that they too will fade away, very soon, there shall be even less to remember, to hold on to and cherish, than anything that has ever come before. There was something though that I saw in both Borth and Blackpool, of which seemed to really drive this home, that the thing which really draws us back is not the bright lights, the artificial suns, not the trendy developments or pleasures that could only happen when the weather and season are lined up just right. It was something more than that. All along each coast were hundreds of memorials, sometimes painted on stones by hand, ready to be washed away by the tide, and sometimes etched onto brass plates like graves on the edge of the sea. Faces, old and young, poems and songs. But they all spoke of the same thing. Cherished memories on holidays long past, of lost loved ones, of whom adored these places so much that they wanted their name to be written there forever. This is very human and very telling of how we really feel about these places, how we should feel about them. No matter if we choose to holiday in a cold caravan or a backstreet B&B. It's the same idea, the same result in the end. A memory has been made. And when all is said and done, when you've been on the package holiday and you've seen the tallest, the biggest, the brightest in the world, what is left? And what, truly, when it grows cold and dark, and the sun falls down on another season? Will you remember about it all?